I'm standing here in a bustling city center, surrounded by people, yet many of the young men around us have never felt more alone. It's a paradox of our hyper-connected world. We're always in touch, but genuine connections seem harder to form than ever. Today, we're diving into a topic that's as controversial as it is crucial: the rising tide of young men struggling to form relationships, and the dangerous undercurrents it's creating in our society. This isn't just about dating, it's about the future of human connection itself. 50 years ago, if you wanted to meet someone, you'd probably do it through friends, at work, or maybe at a local dance. Now you've got the entire dating pool of your city right there in your pocket. Sounds great, doesn't it? More choice, more opportunities. But here's the thing, it's also created a kind of hyper-competition that we've never seen before. You're no longer just competing with the other eligible singles in your immediate social circle. You're up against everyone. And in this digital arena, first impressions aren't just important, they're everything. A split-second decision based on a photo and a witty bio. It's dating at the speed of light, and for many young men, it feels like they're being left in the dust. Now, you might think, okay, so dating's harder. What's the big deal? Well, that's where it gets interesting and concerning. Enter the incel. It stands for involuntarily celibate, and it's a term that's gone from obscure internet slang to mainstream news headlines. At its core, an incel is someone who wants to be in a romantic or sexual relationship, but feels unable to achieve one. And while the term itself is gender neutral, it's predominantly associated with young men. These aren't just guys who are a bit unlucky in love. We're talking about a growing subculture of men who feel completely locked out of the dating world, often leading to deep-seated resentment and, in extreme cases, dangerous ideologies. Let's talk about social media for a moment. Platforms like Instagram and Facebook were supposed to bring us closer together, right? But for many young men, they've had the opposite effect. Scroll through your feed, and what do you see? Carefully curated highlights of other people's lives. Everyone else seems to be in happy relationships, going on exotic holidays, living their best lives. But here's what's really going on. We're comparing our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. And for young men already struggling with self-esteem and social connections, this constant comparison can be devastating. It's a perfect storm of factors: increased social isolation, the pressure of online performance, and the illusion that everyone else has it figured out. Now imagine you're a young man feeling isolated and rejected. Where do you turn? For many, the answer is online communities, and that's where things can take a dark turn. These forums start innocently enough, places to vent frustrations and seek advice, but they can quickly become echo chambers, amplifying negative feelings and reinforcing harmful beliefs. In these spaces, personal setbacks aren't just bad luck or areas for self-improvement. They're reframed as evidence of a rigged system, proof that society is against them. It's a worldview that can be incredibly seductive to someone who's feeling hurt and alone. And once you're in, it can be hard to see any other perspective. So we've got young men feeling isolated, comparing themselves to unrealistic standards, and finding communities that reinforce their worst fears. What happens next? Well, for some, this frustration begins to curdle into something much more dangerous: genuine hatred, particularly towards women and sexually active men. It's a process of radicalization that's not unlike what we see in other extremist groups. The world gets divided into us and them. Complex social and personal issues get boiled down to simplistic, often misogynistic explanations. And in the most extreme cases, this ideology can be used to justify real-world violence. Now you might be thinking, isn't this just an internet problem? I wish it were that simple. The reality is, these online attitudes are spilling over into the real world, and the consequences are serious. For women, it's creating an atmosphere of fear and suspicion. How can you tell if the guy you've just matched with online harbors these kinds of resentments? But it's not just about potential violence, although that's certainly the most alarming aspect. It's also about the erosion of empathy and human connection on both sides. Young men retreating further into isolation, women becoming more guarded. It's a cycle that feeds itself, making genuine connections even harder to form. At its heart, this is about more than just dating. It's about a broader crisis of masculinity. Traditional roles are changing, and for many young men, there's confusion about what it means to be a man in the modern world. How do you express interest without being creepy? How do you be confident without being arrogant? These are complex questions, and we're not giving young men the tools to answer them. So, how do we start to turn this around? It begins with recognition. We need to acknowledge that this is a real problem, affecting real people, not just some fringe internet phenomenon. We need to create spaces where young men can express their frustrations without falling into toxic ideologies. And critically, we need to destigmatize asking for help. The road ahead isn't easy, but it's one we need to take. It involves education, teaching emotional intelligence and healthy relationship skills from a young age. It involves support, creating mental health resources that young men will actually use. And it involves all of us, fostering a culture of empathy and understanding, even when it's difficult. This means comprehensive relationship education in schools, teaching young people how to navigate emotions, rejection, and healthy communication. It means providing positive male role models who can demonstrate healthy masculinity and emotional intelligence. And it means innovating mental health support to meet young men where they are, using technology and approaches that resonate with them. Social media platforms and content creators also have a role to play in promoting healthier relationship models and intervening in radicalization processes. We need to rebuild real-world communities where young people can form genuine connections based on shared interests and values. There are already success stories out there, young men who found their way out of isolation and resentment into healthy, fulfilling relationships. But individual success stories aren't enough. We need systemic change that addresses the root causes of male isolation and relationship struggles. This includes reforming dating culture itself, moving away from the superficial, high-pressure environment of dating apps toward more meaningful ways of meeting people. Schools and workplaces can implement programs that teach social skills and emotional intelligence as core life competencies. Families need to have more open conversations about emotions, relationships, and what healthy masculinity looks like in the modern world. And we need to normalize male emotional vulnerability and create peer support networks that provide alternatives to toxic online communities. The goal isn't just to prevent radicalization, it's to create a society where all young people have the skills and opportunities to form meaningful relationships. This requires ongoing research to understand the changing landscape of relationships and what interventions are most effective. Technology itself isn't the enemy, it's about how we use it. We can harness digital tools to build genuine community rather than superficial connections. Ultimately, we're talking about a cultural shift toward greater empathy, understanding, and genuine human connection across all demographics. Each of us has a role to play, whether that's checking in on isolated friends, challenging toxic attitudes when we see them, or simply treating others with empathy and respect. Change is already happening in communities around the world. People are recognizing this crisis and taking action to address it. It won't happen overnight, but every conversation, every act of understanding brings us one step closer to a world where fewer young men feel left behind, and where genuine human connection isn't just possible, it's the norm. As we've seen, the issues driving the incel phenomenon are complex and deeply rooted, but they're not insurmountable. By fostering genuine connections, promoting healthier models of masculinity, and creating support systems that work, we can start to bridge these divides. This isn't a problem that any one person or organization can solve alone. It requires all of us working together. But the ripple effects of our individual actions can be profound. One young man helped out of isolation can help another. We're not just solving today's problems, we're building a better foundation for future generations. So I challenge you, look around your community. Are there young men who seem isolated or struggling? What can you do to help? The future doesn't have to be defined by division and resentment. With understanding, effort, and genuine care for one another, we can build a world where everyone has the opportunity to connect, to love, and to be loved.